Thank you, Madam President. I would ask Senator Dilan if he would yield.
Senator Dilan, will you yield for questions?
Yes.
Senator Dilan, I was listening to you in your opening remarks and explaining the bill. You referenced that this was a program bill at the request of the governor, and you and Senator Perkins are the prime sponsors. I just want to reiterate that this is a program bill from the governor of the state of New York.
That is correct.
Okay. I would like to ask you a series of questions relative to a policy that was enacted most recently by the governor of our state through an executive order on April 27th of this year, and that had to do with mandate relief and the imposition of mandates on local governments. I was wondering if you were familiar with that executive order.
Madam President, I am not going to respond to any particular policy or executive orders of the governor. I will respond to questions that are within this bill.
Senator Flanagan.
Madam President, maybe I can rephrase my question so that it makes more sense because it clearly relates to this bill.
Senator Dilan, do you continue to yield?
Yes, Madam President.
Madam President, last week, the governor of the state of New York came out with an executive order about mandate relief. It spoke to imposing more mandates on local governments and came through with a very clear process that we have advocated on this side of the aisle for a number of years, but now it was implemented through the imposition of an executive order. It is directly related to the bill that is before us because if we ever had to look up mandate and try and find a picture of it or a definition of it, this bill is the quintessential mandate. Whether you're a not-for-profit, you're a library, you're a municipality, you're a school district, you're a small business employer, this is a brand new multi-billion-dollar mandate being imposed by the Senate Democrats, the Assembly Democrats, and the governor of the state of New York. In that executive order, the governor had laid out a number of criteria that have to accompany any piece of legislation that is either put forth by a state agency, as defined by the governor, not by this body, as any public authority, and it is clearly a program bill. It has to do with the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, which is a public authority defined as a state agency in that executive order. So my question is absolutely relevant to this bill, and I would ask Senator Dilan, pursuant to that executive order, if he has a local fiscal impact statement from the governor's office that accompanies this bill.
Well, I don't. I read to you what this particular bill generates, and then again, if you're asking about the governor's executive order, I'm not prepared to answer that question.
Madam President, is there anybody in the Senate majority who is prepared to answer a question relative to the executive requirements that are supposed to accompany this legislation that they are advancing?
Senator Flanagan, I think you should direct your question to a senator, and then we can have that person yield.
I would ask Senator Smith if he would yield.
Again, as we noted when Senator DeFrancisco asked for Senator Smith to yield, since Senator Smith has not spoken on the bill, he would not be the appropriate person to yield.
Well, Senator Smith introduced the bill. If he prefers not to yield, maybe then the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, Senator Kruger, would yield, in as much as this deals with fiscal implications for the state.
Senator Skelos, why do you rise?
Mr. President, just a point of order. I'm wondering when Senator Smith moved to accept the message of necessity, whether that's essentially speaking on the bill, because there's a necessity to bring the bill to the floor.
His exchange was because he is the chairman of the Rules Committee, and it was in that capacity that he spoke.
So, Madam President, I take it that Senator Smith is refusing to yield unless he's spoken on the bill.
He's not the king. Relax.
Senator Flanagan, certainly there's no refusal. What is being stated is that the question regarding the executive order and the governor's executive order will not be the subject of this discourse as we discuss the bill.
Well, Madam President, with all due respect, it will be the subject of this discourse, and I will speak on the bill and raise these points in that context. And I'm going to make it very clear, I'm going to speak on the bill because apparently there's nobody on the Senate majority side who's willing to yield to a series of questions on something that is extremely important to everybody in the state of New York, regardless of where you live. So I will detail the executive order that I again would state is directly related to this bill, issued by the governor on April 27th of 2009, and it contains the following basic points: that no state agency shall recommend, publish, or submit any regulation containing a mandate without an accounting of the impact of such mandate on local governments. It goes on to further say that any bill containing a mandate was offered by a state agency, which is exactly defined in this bill, or by the executive order, to the legislature unless it's accompanied by a local fiscal impact statement. It also goes on to say that there has to be an estimate of the present and future cost of compliance, a description of the methodology used to estimate such present and future cost impacts, and a summary of the inputs sought and obtained from the affected local governments, and a cost-benefit analysis of such mandate. Now, this didn't come from Senator Skelos, it didn't come from Senator Dilan, it didn't come from me. It came from the governor of the state of New York, so I would expect in fulfilling his obligations and duties and in working with the legislature, he would bring forth the background material so that we as legislators and in turn our constituents and the public would be able to see exactly the criteria that we used. What's the methodology? What's the cost-benefit analysis? How do they believe that this will affect not-for-profits? How does the governor believe this will affect libraries? How does the governor believe this will affect small employers? But the problem is, nobody wants to deal with that. And you know what? That's too bad. Because if people are uncomfortable, that's part of the process that we're dealing with right now. It goes to the core of what Senator DeFrancisco spoke to about transparency and disclosure. Separate point. I would ask, and I'm going to preface this by saying I realize that she has not spoken on the bill. But I'm asking as a courtesy because I have an education-related question. I'm asking the chair of the Senate Education Committee, Senator Oppenheimer, if she would yield to a question.
The request, Senator Flanagan, is out of order. If you would want to continue to speak, please come in.
Interpretation of the rule. I'm asking as a courtesy if the Senate Education Committee chair would yield on
Senator
an education-related
Klein, why do you
question.
rise?
Madam President, point of order. According to Rule 9(4)B, it should not be in order for a senator with right to the floor to ask another senator to yield to a question unless such senator has previously spoken during the debate on the matter. So that's the section, Madam President.
Madam President, I'll just continue on the bill.
On the bill, Senator.
And I actually do hope that our constituents are watching this because here's my question. I'll ask it rhetorically since nobody is apparently willing to answer it. On page 13 of the bill, there's language, lines 35 to 43, section 2A, that talks about a suspension of the tax, the school payroll tax, that would be paid by our school districts. It said if we don't have the money through an appropriation, that there can be a 6-month suspension for school districts to be making that payment. But thereafter, there's no suspension, and they have to keep paying it no matter what we do in terms of money. So if we don't come up with the money, we give a hiatus, not unlike what a lot of car companies are doing right now for people who lose their jobs. But after a certain point, school districts continue to have to pay the school payroll tax with absolutely no guarantee that they'll be reimbursed. And I couldn't go back in good faith, and none of my colleagues could go back in good faith and tell our school districts right now, don't worry, the money's there. There's no $60 million, there's no $97 million, there's no $100 million in this bill. There's no appropriation. There's a promise, and it says it's the intent. But if you look at this language that I just referenced, it should make anybody who works for a school district very nervous. I can't for the life of me understand why this was ever put in the first place. If the idea was to hold school districts harmless, not to create a problem for them, why was there not an exemption to begin with? It would have made a lot more sense to do it that way. School districts are simply not going to believe us. They're not going to believe it until they actually see the money. And as a result, there will be a direct correlation between this action that you're taking and raising local property taxes.